2020 has twisted, turned, and twirled us between its fingers, crushed us between its months, tugged at our corners, and left us feeling undone. A pressure pot of chaos, a jam jar of jagged edges, ups and downs, round and round, stops and goes, yeses and nos. But maybe, just maybe, through these fires, our truest truth will be forged. Innovators, leaders, and creators, raise your head. It is time to start up, to scale up, to stand up for what it is yours. If it all hadn't burned to the ground or fallen apart, you wouldn't know the fresh joy that comes with a new start. With shaking hands and a boldness of heart, hold your passions and ambitions up high. Keep shouting your yes to the uncertain sky. Strap on your story and hold on to your hope. Woman, the world waits for your wisdom and wonder to unfold. With great anticipation, we await what your knowing hands hold. You are a force, powerful enough to bend and break boundaries, to make room for bigger, for better, for brighter. Africa, our time is now. We have stood by the giants of the world in this same fight. We have proven that we too are made of courage and might. With our ideas and crafts, may we continue to radiate light. 2020 has twisted and turned and twirled us, but we will redeem, rediscover, redesign, and reassign. We will recreate and regenerate. Africa, it is time to pivot.
Wamkelekile. Welcome to the 2020 Innovation Summit. Wamkelekile. Yes, we're going virtual and live. Nobody could have imagined this year would be like this. We are so deep in it, lost in a world of confusion. We're facing uncertainty, but that's all we've ever known. Must be the origin of invention, our main source of innovation. So yes, we will redeem, yes, we will recover. When you redesign and reassign, there's so much to rediscover. Listen to the message. How much are you receiving of this beautiful mess we're in? Open your mind and you may find the universe telling you something. It says chase, chase the mystery deep inside your pain. Try to figure out a better question to your moan. Because no, the suffering will never end. It's all been designed that way. You have to figure out a better question for your what the fuck moment of your day. What the fuck is going on here? What the fuck is going on? Can you find a better question? What is going on here? Chase, chase the mystery. Allow me to take you on a journey of rediscovery as we examine the 10 types of innovation. Let's reimagine your business model. How do you make your money? 2. Your network. Build your village. Who do you need to reconnect with? Your structure. How are you reshuffling your talent with your assets? Process. The way you do how you do your production. Performance, your features, your functionality. What makes you different from everyone else? Your system. All the complementary products and services. Service. all the other services that go with what you do. Your channel delivery disruption. Get it? You're gonna get it. How? You're gonna get it to me. Now when we think about your brand, what do we think about you? The revolution. What do you stand for? There has to be a reason for every little thing you do. Responsibly joining the cause. Customer engagement. Start a dialogue. Interaction. Reconnection. Resuscitation. Follow me, like me, give me information. How much are you receiving what I'm saying? You only get traction for reputation. Better start something like a revolution. Only get traction for reputation. You better start something like a revolution. Only get traction for reputation. Better start something like a revolution. Only get traction for reputation. Better start something like a revolution. Only get traction for reputation. Better start something like a revolution. You only get traction for reputation. Better start something like a revolution. Let's reimagine. Paradigm shifting, roles are reversing, boundaries are crumbling, we're finding our purpose. Capitalism is shifting, reason for existing. Passion, there's purpose, we're finding our why. Reconnecting, why we are here. Re-engineering. Paradigm shifting, roles are reversing, the boundaries are crumbling, we're finding our purpose. Capitalism is shifting, there's reason for existing. Passion, there's purpose, we're finding out why. We're reason, we're here. Reimagining, reconnecting, redefining, we'll build it back better. Woman, the world is waiting for your wisdom and wonder to unfold. Build it back better. Africa, your time is now. Let's build it back better. We're facing uncertainty, but that's all we've ever known. Must be the origin of invention, our main source of innovation. So yes, we will redeem. Yes, we will recover. When you redesign and reassign, there's so much to rediscover.
Africa, our time is now.
It's time to pivot. Yeah, it's time to pivot.
Africa, our time is now.
It's time to pivot. Yeah, it's time. Listen to the message. How much are you receiving of this beautiful mess we're in? Open your mind and you may find the universe telling you something. It says chase the mystery deep inside your pain. Try to figure out a better question to your moan. Because no, the suffering will never end. It's all been designed that way. You have to figure out a better question for your what the fuck moment of your day. What the fuck is going on here? What the fuck is going on? Can you find a better question? What is going on here? Chase the mystery. Recession, recovery, depression, rediscovery. Relax, rejuvenate, relax, do nothing, relax. We'll build it back better. We're gonna build it back better. Relax, we'll build it back better.
Africa, our time is now.
It's time to pivot. Yeah, it's time to pivot.
Africa, our time is now.
The story of African innovation and entrepreneurship is one that needs to be told. Let's retell, reset, recreate, and re-own it with Martina Fuchs, an award-winning journalist, and Vasantha Angamutu, CEO of African News Agency.
Ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome to the South Africa Innovation Summit. We are in a reset virtual world. You are joining us from across the African continent, from around the world, from your couches, your gardens, your offices, from the beach maybe as well. And we just heard a very wonderful poem by Kuno Seleho and had a very fun session by Peter Greenwald. So now it's down to serious business, and I can't wait to kick off this next session, which is about Africa as an investment destination and telling its very own narrative. Now we are talking in this session about the African innovation and entrepreneurship narrative. Retell, reset, recreate, re-own it. My name is Martina Fuchs. I'm an international TV anchor and business journalist based in Zurich and London, joining you from Switzerland today. Without further ado, I would now like to welcome on our virtual stage Vasantha Angamutu. She's the CEO of the African News Agency. Welcome, Vasantha.
Thank you very much, Martina. It's a great pleasure to meet you.
Now, she is the one and only to talk about the African narrative, about innovation and entrepreneurship. That's also why she's the CEO and invited today to talk on behalf of the African News Agency, which, can you believe it, has some 63 million readers and listeners. It's really a massive enterprise that you are running, Vasantha. So I would like to first of all focus with you on the bigger picture of things, right? The first level. So of course, it is very important to bring the African story out to the world, especially in times of COVID-19 pandemic, with so many news, more information than we actually want to see. So tell us, why is it important to talk about the African innovation and entrepreneurship narrative?
Thank you very much, Martina. But just a little correction, the African News Agency has got what we call the African Partner Network, the APN, which is a collective of media companies across the continent, and altogether our reach in Africa is 63 million. We're very proud of that particular number, because one of the key philosophies, one of the key things that is not uniquely African, but very African, is collaboration, is working together towards something bigger than ourselves. So the APN, the African Partner Network, which Anna manages, reaches that 63 million. But Martina, I want to talk about this big picture with respect to storytelling and narrative. And there's a proverb that we repeat a lot at Anna, and that is, until the lion learns to write, every story will glorify the hunter. And this particular proverb is what guides a lot of the work that we do at Anna. Because if we're talking about narrative and if we're talking about storytelling, nothing illustrates this more powerfully than looking at how there is a particular narrative about Africa in the world. We know this, we joke about this. You ask people, or you tell people, hey, I'm from Africa, and they think, they're lions. You get off the airplane and they're lions to greet you, or you've got a pet elephant in your back garden. That's the kind of funnier, quirkier bits in terms of the stories that people, or the storytelling that has been about Africa. But on the more negative side, if you ask people, and there's one very good piece that I'd read where there was a survey done of people from around the world and said, what do you know about Africa? And the kind of language people would use would be, Africans are primitive, uneducated, not very intelligent. It's a third world country. Most people think Africa is a country, not a continent. It's poor. It's always got its hand out, or a begging bowl out. The enduring pictures of the starving African child, and that school kids need to dip into their pockets to rake up what coins they can to send to this starving African child.
And still in 2020, right, Vasanta? It's so difficult to change this narrative and these stereotypes. So you have a huge responsibility. How to change the storyline?
Yeah. Before we get to that, Martina, this is something I'd like to share, because this is another thing that makes us really proud as Africans. So we did a little bit of research and we said, do you know, if we look at the origins, you know, people are very proud of their cultural heritage or their nationality, and they always say the Greeks gave us 1 and 0, and then the Indians will counterclaim and say, no, actually India is what gave the world 1s and 0. But do you know that Africa gave the world maths? Ancient Black Egyptians created the earliest numeric system on record, and the oldest mathematical object is the Lebombo bone, which has been found in the mountains of Swaziland. Africa gave the world art. The oldest known artwork in human history was discovered in Blombos in South Africa. Africa also gave the world writing. The oldest known form of writing developed in sub-Saharan Africa. This is why the writing system is known as Proto-Saharan. Africa also gave the world language. Every language in the world can be traced back to the dialect spoken by African ancestors from over 100,000 years ago. And medicine, we know this from Egyptian art. The ancient Egyptians invented the concrete system of medicine, or mining, or architecture. The pyramids of Giza. I know that there's this one narrative that actually it was aliens that built the pyramids, and I just think that's an attempt to keep us from claiming it as Africa, that we are actually the birthplace of architecture. Also the city of Great Zimbabwe. And cooking, reanalysis of burnt bone fragments and giant and plant ashes from the Vonderwerf cave in South Africa gives evidence that fire and cooking by early humans 1 million years ago happened on this continent, and clothing, and I can go on. So Martina, here's the thing. If there's this one picture of the continent, and yet the truth, the science, has another picture of the continent, it tells us the sheer volume or the sheer quantum of work that needs to be done by Anna and by our partners in the African network to tell the story of an Africa that is actually about innovation and invention and technology and art and individuals all building, making, dreaming up and conceptualizing just the coolest things to put out in the world, much of which changes society for the better. So storytelling is so critical. If we go back to that proverb, about the lion and the hunter, and it is absolutely true, is that it is time that we became the lion, so that the story doesn't only glorify the hunter. That Africa, you know, there's also this, you know, maybe about 8 to 10 years ago, suddenly the big international magazines that covers Africa Rising, you know, Africa is the new area for growth, the next big continent where we're going to see the kind of economic push and innovation, technological push is going to be Africa. And of course, because we kind of as a continent leapfrogged the third industrial revolution, we have an opportunity with the fourth. And which is why technology is this really exciting place to be in if we get the narrative and the storytelling right. The story of invention and innovation, the story of, actually this is an Indian word, it's called jugaad. And it's where you have a problem, you don't have an expensive fix for it, but you make a fix for it using the tools at hand. And I think that is the story of African innovation and invention.
Absolutely. And this is why we are having the South Africa Innovation Summit right now. It's just amazing to see the landscape, the diversity of startups from almost every country on the continent, and see this vibe and this thirst for change and innovation. So we totally need to help them and support them in any way we can. So let's talk about the individual level as well, Vasanta, and especially about the infrastructure, the technology, the support needed for these young startup entrepreneurs. What do you think is required the most at this critical junction right now?
So Martina, we've spoken about the big picture, you know, just the sheer importance of, let's call it truthful storytelling, because storytelling can determine investment. It can determine faith and trust And we all know this. We know this in our business. The more ethical and trustful you appear to be, the more likely you are to secure the kind of partnerships and funding that you require. And that's why it's important as a starting point in terms of the big picture to retell the story of Africa. Now, when we look at entrepreneurs, if you look at individuals who have an idea, a great idea, and need the kind of funding or support to get that idea from idea and concept to implementation, then we start looking at storytelling as a craft or as a marketing opportunity. So a couple of things happened with this shift in content consumption, or in terms of in media. We know that technology has completely disrupted media as we know it. I come from a newspaper background. It's particularly heartbreaking when you see newspapers in decline. But then you see digital content and media on the rise, and you think people are still reading. People are still very, very hungry, still very thirsty for news and content. But what digital content and what social media has done is that it has completely changed attention span. Where previously people had the attention span to consume a lot of content, now of course you know that the science says that the human now has the attention span less than that of a goldfish. So with storytelling, you have got to have a compelling story to grab that limited attention span, and then keep that person with you so that you can tell your story and get the kind of support that you would require. The other thing that's happened with social media and of course Google and Facebook, which are now the biggest advertising platforms in the world, is that brands have also shifted from advertising as we know it to now content marketing or telling stories. So we know that human beings like stories. It's sitting around the campfire, it's sitting with your grandparents, it's sitting with your parents and saying, tell me a story about what was and what is. Storytelling is a very primal, very key human need. Now, if we hook into that as entrepreneurs, as innovators, as people who have a compelling idea that can change society, that can change the world, then we have to find the ways in which to tell the story. And the key things here, Martin, and I, we come to this telling the story itself. Authenticity is everything. Truth is everything. Say our mission at the African News Agency is to build all our products on the foundations of truth telling and good journalism and everything that implies. If you're going to tell a story that is authentic, a story that is personal, a story about you and why your idea is as much about you as it is about the world in which you're presenting it, then you will grab that minute attention span that exists in the world, and through that possibly be able to get to the right ear so that you get the support that you require to take your idea from 2 a.m. dream or 5 a.m. shower thought to a fully fledged business. Of course, we have a vested interest in this. We're a media company, we're a syndication platform, but we have seen through our platforms the difference that can be made if you tell a story truly, authentically, and well. It can change the fortunes of the participants at the summit. You know, when Audrey and I were talking early on, and we were saying there are all these amazing participants, there are all these amazing innovators that will be at the summit, and very often you go to a summit, you meet people, and think, oh, that's a great story, and that's a great story, and it kind of stays within the confines of a conference. And I would urge that the more stories we tell about the individuals who are doing great things and the innovators who have thought up innovations and world-changing ideas, every one of those stories tells a different story about Africa. And that is our interest in this. Every story of someone who's building something really cool goes back to that pride we feel when we hear that Africa gave the world art and architecture. I'd love for us to say Africa has given the world a new social media platform that is not as fraught with problems as the unnamed one which we're all part of. That would be a good story to tell.
It's all about making an impact at the end of the day. And we're all content creators nowadays, right? We all have stories to tell. And this is, for example, also where ByteDance and TikTok, originally from China, come in, because everybody has this big megaphone, this big platform, cameras, lights, action. We can all bring our story out into the world. And why cannot the next TikTok come from Africa? There is absolutely no reason why there shouldn't. So I guess the issue is also how to scale these ideas up, Vasanta. So what kind of advice do you have for these young entrepreneurs and innovators to scale up their business?
So Martina, I wouldn't be able to make input in terms of the scaling up of their business from a business perspective, but from a media and content perspective is tell your story, tell it often, tell it loudly. The other thing, and this again, this would actually be from a business perspective, one of the things that we're quite committed to at Anna is having a purpose that's bigger than ourselves. We're significantly invested in the fortunes of our continent. We believe our purpose statement, our just cause as we call it, is using content to power growth and development in Africa. And if these entrepreneurs, if these innovators say, what is the thing that my innovation will give to the world where that return is not for me, that return is not profit, that return is bigger than me, that return benefits someone other than me, then you find a business that a lot of people can say, I want to be part of that journey. I want to be part of that success story because the return is so big that I will have benefit. I will have benefit from it. And then to use whatever platforms are available. Martina, I completely agree with you. You know, stories, in the past, stories would be told in newspapers. If you are lucky enough, you either bought an advert or you got a journalist to interview you, you told your story, and then it was fantastic. Now, of course, as you rightly say, everyone's a journalist, everyone's a videographer, everyone's a filmmaker, everyone's a photographer. And in a world where there is so much content, you need someone to sift through it. And you need to be able to tell a story that rises above all that clutter. If that story is authentic, if it is truthful, if it tells a story about benefit, if it tells a story about how it changes society for the better, then it will have resonance. And because you're right, the next TikTok might be coming out of Africa, the next Facebook might be, the next Twitter, the next Pinterest, the next big e-commerce. You know, Jack Ma might have competition coming from this continent of ours.
And he loves Africa, by the way, Jack Ma.
Yes, he does very much.
With his fund, and he wants to invest. So we need this bridge building as well. And as you say, there should be no limits, right? Sky is not the limit anymore. Have big dreams, have big visions, this special idea, and just go for it.
Martina, it's really important that we tell this African innovation entrepreneurship story, not just so that we can power the success of individuals who are innovating and entrepreneurs who've got great business ideas that just need to be taken to market, but because for every story of every single innovator and every single entrepreneur that we tell, we're telling the story of Africa. We're reframing the narrative about Africa, and through that, hopefully, have the world see us not as the starving child with the begging bowl, but with a continent of innovators and thinkers and world changers and activists and people who change not just the continent but the entire world. And the stories have to be told, because in telling the story, you will power the success of those innovators and entrepreneurs.
Vasanta, we talked about the first level, which was the big picture, the second level, the individual story. Let's now talk about the third level, which is tools and methodologies that are needed to tell this story. So what is the most important, do you think? Maybe especially if we keep the discussion on digital and social media, marketing and advertising. What is needed, Vasanta?
So Martina, I know this might sound as if, I'm pushing now an agenda, But that is our job. I mean, the African News Agency and all of our partners within the partner network, our job is to tell stories and get them out to a wider world. So if we talk about collectively a 63 million reach in the continent, and in South Africa, a 9 million reach with our platforms, then we're saying use our platforms, because like an idea is only as good as its implementation, a story is only as good as its reach. So reach is vitally important. Now, here's the other thing, is that people consume content on many in many formats. We know that TikTok right now is the darling platform, and millennials, not so much millennials, actually Generation Z in particular, like that short burst format, which is what has resulted in TikTok's phenomenal.
Are you on TikTok?
I am not, Martina. I have occasionally gone onto it. It's very, very good. My nephews, my daughter, they're all constantly on it. That your story can be told in text, it can be told in pictures, it can be told in video, it can be told in a podcast, it can be told in a quiz, it can be told in multiple different platforms, and all of these platforms should be used to tell that story. So that's the one. Use whatever platform you can, or use whatever platform you're most comfortable with. The second, if you go back to authenticity and truth telling, some of the best videos that I've seen that have promoted either an idea or a company have been ones where the personality and the point of view of the owners have shone through, because that is what leads to trust. That's what builds this perception that it is authentic. I saw a great video the other day from a company in Holland, and they're reclaiming plastic bottles from the oceans and then turning it into the nicest boardroom furniture. But the video itself in which they told the story was just so cool, and it's the way the story was told captured the brand essence of that particular company. So that's the other thing. The format that you're using and the way you're telling the story should be true to you. It shouldn't feel like you're forced into I'm going to put on a suit, I'm going to stand stiffly in front of a camera, and I'm going to say, our mission is this and our values is this. But just talk as naturally about your company as you would to the people around you, the people that you love. So use whatever formats you can. Use whatever support you can get from media companies such as ours, because that's the business that we're in. We tell stories. We have professional journalists who are able to do that. Big or small.
So are you looking for partners as well at this point in time? Maybe some of our young audience, participants, they might be interested in reaching out to you after the summit?
That would be amazing, Martina. We will have a number of journalists at covering the summit to meet some of the people participating, to meet some of the people who are speaking, to meet some of the entrepreneurs and the thought leaders and the innovators, with the hopes that we will tell their story going forward from the summit itself. But of course, we would love for people to reach out for us.
I'm sure you'll get a lot of messages afterwards. Let me also ask you about monetizing, because we all have
fantastic, Martina.
Ideas. We do want to tell our own story, but then the next level, the next step is really to make money and make a living, right? To really monetize that business as well. How do you see that shaping up in South Africa, but also on the continent as a whole? I guess funding and investment is still a very critical issue.
I'm sorry, Martina, you broke up a bit. I just did monetization for the business.
What about funding and investment? Just before we wrap up, we only have a couple of seconds left to go. Is it improving? Do you see more seed funding for these young entrepreneurs?
Absolutely. I think the first step is to just get these entrepreneurs, thought leaders, investors in front of the world, get their stories out there so that someone says, hey, I really like that. If you don't know that something exciting is being built, then you're not likely to invest in it. So the first step is to get the story out there. And I think that's the role that we would like to play in the South African Innovation Summit, telling the stories, telling them as loudly as possible, in the best format, and push to as many platforms, including social media, print, and digital as we can.
Thank you so much, Vasanta. This is exactly what we are going to do over the next 3 exciting days. We'll have a lot of storytelling from entrepreneurs, investors, thought leaders, and so on. So make sure that you spend some time in the Match and Invest Lounge. Write to each other in the chat boxes, use the community tools, the VOVA app. The next session that is coming up for you right now is appropriately called Scaling Your Enterprise. It's all about scaling your business to the next level to really make this impact that Vasanta and I have been talking about. It is going to be introduced by Joe Haslam from the IE Business School in Spain, in Madrid, and it will be followed by a panel discussion between entrepreneurs that scaled up their business to this next level. For example, companies like Flutterwave, Sweep South, GoZem, or OCFO. So let the storytelling begin. I only speak one African language, which is Swahili, and I say Asante Sana, which means thank you very much, and stay tuned for all the next sessions coming up for you right now.
Thank you very much, Martina.
Thank you, Vasanta. Thank you.